Hello, Professor Toybox here along with Jack Skellington, and today I'm going to finish the build exercise for my Gravity Falls toy box. I'm going to begin with the cemetery, and once again here is the map that I'm using to lay out the toy box. The cemetery is at location 3 in the lower left corner. Here's a screenshot of it from the TV show. You can see it is surrounded by a wrought iron fence and trees. So in my toy box, with Gracie's Diner being over there, that means the cemetery is going to go right over here. And let me pull up my screen grab here for it. Alright, we're going to begin. We open up the editor with Fantasy Terrain Corner 2. And I'm going to stick this right in here. This is basically the same as this piece right here. And I'll style that later. And then the best pieces that we have to use for building the cemetery are the Halloween Town pieces, and you'll find those up under Building Sets Group 3, assuming that you've unlocked them. And I'm going to place the first one right here like this. This will be the corner. And whoops, went the wrong way. And then we're going to place two of these along here like that, followed by another corner. And then a wide piece and another corner. And I'm just going to make a very small cemetery here. It doesn't need to be very large. It's just a kind of a token, a nod to the TV show. And we need the gate that goes on the front. And I'm going to use this piece here. And of course we're going to run into that. But if we go this way, we don't. So I'll put my Halloween Town gate in like that. And then for the gravestones, we have three pieces that we can use. And to save memory, I'm just going to use one of them. We come over to the right, we have this piece with a curved path, and this piece with a straight path, and I'm just going to use this piece here. And we're going to need 6 of these. And we're going to bunch this up as close as we can get to this gate, I think. About like that, I believe. Yeah. Alright, and then we're going to line up the left edge of that with the center of the gate. And I'm going to place that first big tree here in this corner like this. And then as we head up this way, we'll just kind of rotate this so that it's not quite so repetitive. We'll put one over here. And we'll go like that. And so there's our graveyard. And the ground's a little darker than I would like, but what are you going to do? You can't customize them, so. The one thing you want to make sure you do, though, is leave a little room along the back here for a collectible or something that you might want to put in here to give the player a reason to go in there. Alright, and there's our cemetery. I would have loved to have added the secret entrance to Tremblay's Cove, the hidden location beneath the cemetery, but I just don't have the memory for it. If you're on a system with more memory, that would be a great addition to build. But all that's left to do now is to fill in the empty areas with some trees. And that's going to take a while, so I'm going to do that offline, and then I'll be back to give you a slow flyover so you can see where to place everything. Okay, I'm back. And I've placed most of the trees. And before I give you a little tour of that, I want to let you know I am not done. And it's kind of fortuitous that this happened, because I can teach you something here. So I've got all of the trees in for almost everywhere except on this plateau. If I come out of Spark mode, you can see I've got a meter over on the right that's pegged. It's the graphics memory meter. And I still need to place a few trees, and when I try to place this, it won't let me. That little meter keeps coming up. And it says graphics memory. Whoops. Toys with detailed surfaces like building sets impact this the most. And you might run into that when you're building, and I'll show you what to do about that. But before I do, I need to take you on a tour of what I've placed so far. And then I'll come back and tell you what you can do about that meter. So I'm going to give you a short fly through, and these are all of the customizable pieces out of the plants drawer that I've placed. These first 9 pieces here. And I have not styled these because I wanted you to see which pieces I've placed and where. So I placed this one down first, and then I placed another one about evenly distanced from that gate on this side, and a few others around that. And again, feel free to pause this video along the way if you're recreating this in your own toy box. You can kind of see which pieces I've placed and where. And again, the exact placement doesn't really matter as long as they're close. And of course, you can also mix things up and place these anywhere you want in your own toy box. You don't have to follow exactly what I've done. But the main thing is to fill the empty space, but don't fill it completely. You don't want to fill up your toy box memory with trees. You need to leave some room for the player to move around in the woods. You need to leave some room for the logic, for the activities. So just place a few trees here and there and some interesting clusters to try to make it interesting. So you can see I've left some paths in here. I've left like a little clearing area over here. And you can just kind of see how I've placed my trees along here. And we're coming back over here past the cemetery. I'll just kind of, again, show you what I've got. Placed a few trees up there. I've only placed that one in the corner back there. I'll show you what I've done after I finish that. Some trees along here. Some trees along over here. Couple along the water, some trees back over here, and again, exact placement doesn't matter, just make it kind of interesting, but don't fill it up completely. You can see I've left a lot of this area blank back here because you don't want to cover up the nice edging that I've put along there, or the nice sky dome. We'll go around the mountain here. And then we're back over to the area we'd filled in before. I'll come back to that mountain in a minute. On this side of the road, on the left side, past the Gravity Falls sign, you can kind of see I've placed some tree clusters. And I've also lined the street with trees. You can kind of see what I've done. Kind of keyed off of this one corner piece over here and started building along this way. And then 2 little tree clusters here, which kind of creates a nice little hiding hole back there for things. Over by the tent of telepathy. Along the back side of these buildings over here in town. Behind the Dusk to Dawn. And between these buildings over here. And then coming back over this way, behind these 2 buildings, I've placed one down here along the riverbed. Most of the riverbed is clear, though, as you can see. I did place a few little plants over here on the back side of this, just so you have a little bit of edging there and not just drop off into nothingness. And then back behind these buildings, I added a few extra pieces. And then on this side of Greasy's Diner, a few additional trees. And then the woods behind the Mystery Shack. Let's see, I'll go along the river here first, so you can kind of see how that's laid out. And around the corner. And then along this edge. Till you get to the Mystery Shack. And then we've placed some clusters in the middle, like you see here. And you can see that I created some interesting little paths through there. A little clearing over here. And so that's what I've got. Oh, and then the top of the hill over here. So as you come up the ramp near the Tent of Telepathy, I've got some trees placed in and around the footsteps over here. And a couple of them over here on these corners. And you can kind of use the terrain seams there to see where I've lined everything up. And then you go across the bridge, and I started with this little piece lined right up next to the bridge, and then just kind of created a little clearing on top of this area. So that's what we have so far. And then I was trying to finish up this area when I ran into that memory meter problem, and I thought this is a perfect opportunity to show you what to do about that. So we'll come back out of Spark mode here. We come back to our Fantasy Terrain Strip 1, and you can see it will not let me place anything else in the toy box. And the way to get around that, what that meter is telling you, is that you have too many different kinds of objects in the toy box. And detailed objects like the trees and these customizable pieces that I'm using everywhere take up a lot of memory. Also, complex shapes like the set pieces and buildings from the first Disney Infinity 1.0 playsets. There's a lot of slanted surfaces and round surfaces and detail and stuff on these buildings, and that all takes up graphic memory. Statues, the Dusk to Dawn, Greasy's Diner, Mystery Shack, especially things like Mystery Shack that are not only a lot of decorative surfaces but also very interactive. And so all of those things, and the cemetery here, all of these things take up memory. And the more different kinds of objects that you use, the faster that memory gets used up. And it's primarily two factors: the number of objects that you use. As you can see, I've placed a lot of these trees. And the number of different kinds of objects. So the fewer kinds of objects that you use, the more greater in number that you can place. Or if you use a lot of different objects, then you can only place a smaller number of those before that graphic meter runs out. So the way to deal with that, right now I've got 2 sets of trees, and I've got a lot of trees. But you'll notice as soon as I go and style these things, so let's come up here and go open the styling meter, and we're going to come over to the Gravity Falls trees, and I am going to theme all. Are you sure? Yes. And now that's going to go through the toy box and style all of the customizable pieces in the Gravity Falls theme. And you can see it's going through and doing that. And in doing so, that's reducing the variety of objects that I have to work with, that I have used up. Because now I don't have just the plain fantasy terrain pieces and a lot of them. Now I have a lot of same number of objects, but fewer variety. And what you can see as I come out of Spark mode, what that did to my graphic meter is that dropped it in about half. That meter is now down around the halfway mark. And it did that because I reduced the number of objects, number of different kinds of objects that I'm using in the toy box. So now I can place more graphics, and you'll see it's letting me place that. And again, I'm now increasing the number of objects, but the number of the variety of these that I've put down is very small. I've only placed one. And so hopefully that helps you understand the two things that contribute to that meter are the number of different kinds of objects that you're using and their complexity, and the sheer volume or number of objects total that you're putting down. And that includes terrain, that includes building pieces, plants, everything. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this upper area, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I'm back once again, and I have finished off the upper area up here with trees. And as you can see, I've reintroduced a lot of the same trees that I was using before, so that adds to the complexity again. But you'll notice the memory meter on the right, even though it has gone up quite a bit, the graphics meter I mean, which is the second one from the top, that has gone up quite a bit from what it was a moment ago before I filled all of this in, but it's not quite as high as it was, and that's because I don't have as many of these shapes up here as I did earlier, because I had these scattered all throughout the toy box. But once again, let me show you what I've got, and then I'll style these. So if we start from the back corner here with the one plant that I had placed last time, I ran a couple of those straight ones down, and then a couple of these corner pieces with a little tree. I put a corner piece over here, some pieces over here in the middle. And then in this section, you can kind of see what I've done. This section, you can see what I've done. By section, I'm kind of going by terrain block here. And then on the top of this terrain block. And then the final one. Like that. Alright, so we'll go ahead and style the last set of these, which should drop that activity meter again. So as we come over, we'll style everything to the Gravity Falls. I'll go ahead and theme all. And that changes the last of the pieces. It's kind of rippling through all of them, of course, and restyling everything I've already styled before. Here we go. And it looks like it's finished with everything. And so now as I come out of the styling meter and we come out of, or the styling menu, we come out of the Spark mode, you'll notice that activity meter has dropped again. It's the second meter down from the top. So that top meter is the amount of total memory that we're using. Once that thing is pegged, we can't put anything else in the toy box at all, no matter what we do. But the graphics meter, the second one down, has dropped again. But you can see how much I have there that I've got available to build the games and activities in the toy box. And if we come back out of Spark mode here, I just wanted to get over this way. You can see we've got just a little over 2/3 of the memory available to us to build the games and activities for the toy box. And I usually don't like to go over 2/3. I'm going a little bit over it here, just because I wanted the detail. But I could take out some of these trees if I needed to, so I do have options. But there we go. The build exercise for this toy box is done. Next time we'll start working on the logic for the games and activities, beginning with the Ferris wheel in Stan's Little Fair by the Mystery Shack. So remember to come back on Wednesday for that, or better yet, just subscribe to my channel so you'll never miss an episode of this or any of my future series. And if you like this toy box, leave a comment before you go. I'd love to hear from you. Take care.